I suppose I would recognise that if a student goes from first year undergrad all the way through to 7 years later having done their PhD, actually that relationship will change over time. And it's the role within that first year to move students away from the way they learned at sort of school and had learned for whatever 13 years up until that point, if they come straight in from school, to a much more self-directed way of learning. But actually, probably in that first year, it will be more responsibility for the lecturer than it will be for the student. But power balance will shift and should shift whilst they're there. And so certainly by the end of, whilst they're doing their dissertation, or sort of second, third year, that power will have shifted significantly. And by the time they're doing their PhD, they are pretty much sort of directing their own learning almost completely. So it will sort of shift whilst they're in higher education. I suppose it's interesting. I'll sort of say one more thing and let other people comment. In the old in Greek times, I think it was back to when universities started. What would happen is you'd have the lecturer would sort of give their talk, and then they'd turn around, they'd have a pouch on the back, and then you'd pay what you actually thought it was worth. So much more sort of a performance-driven approach.
There is a danger with some of the sort of self-directed modes of study that it can be a bit of an excuse, and I think this came up earlier, for the tutors just to go and do something else whilst the students are beavering away. I think that's terrible. I think students absolutely have got a right to see plenty of their tutors and work with them, hopefully in a collaborative way. And I think if you get that model right, then you'd have no problem with going and talking to your tutor about what stuff that you felt was wrong. I don't think there's any problem with students texting because their lecture is late, but I'd rather they text me. And I'll say, yeah, I'm really sorry, I'm on my way. Wouldn't it be nice if we had... I'd much rather have that relationship than find out months later through some feedback circle when the students have already gone away and it's too late. So.
I think, as you very rightly said, it's something that develops over the course of your time at university. By the time you come to your third year or fourth year or masters, when you're doing a dissertation, you are expected to have developed as a learner at university and be able to take on self-directed study. In the interim, however, I think there's a lot of sort of give and take. I think it's a working relationship that differs depending on the subject matter, differs depending on the types of characters you have, as to whether or not it should be entirely self-directed, whether or not it should be led by a tutor. And I think what's important there really is just the channel of communication whereby the student and the person providing the education are free enough to discuss what's going well, what's going badly with the current relationship that they have, and sort of seek a resolution that is best for the learning process.
This is a difficult one. I can't put a set number on what I think exactly it should be. But I think it changes as a student travels through university. You know, you're inducting them into the higher education. So the amount of teaching and self-directed learning might be different in your first year to what it might be towards the end of your course at university. So be mindful of that. On the question of self-directed learning, I think we have to be mindful that self-directed learning is not being left alone to do your own thing. And I think that it's being, and it really irritates me, I see people interpreting it in this way sometimes. And also, you know, as I said a second ago, doing your journey through higher education, you are able to handle that self-directed learning in different ways. So if you're thinking that your students are going to come to higher education, and that step between being at school or actually perhaps some of those mature students coming in from a workplace into higher education, just because they walk through the doors of a university, they can instantly be an independent learner. I think that's a fallacy, and you know, we need to be mindful of that.